Today is really about rediscovering your why in running. I think with the COVID-19 situation, it's been really tough. Like, you know, in other countries, people can't go running at all. We are quite lucky in Singapore where we at least can step out a bit here and there. I can't even imagine living in like places like Chamonix and you're around the mountains and you can't run. So it's given a lot of time for us to maybe be a bit introspective and figure out, okay, why do we actually run? And today, we've got quite a nice panel of people, friends of mine. We run together. Yeah, it's been good. A lot of us went for the BUTM recently, and we are from the Salomon Singapore family as well. And what I'd like to do is get everyone to introduce themselves. So Aslan, Ian, Jong Hao, Wei Chong, myself. Maybe we can go one by one. Just your name, how many years you've been running trail, and maybe your most memorable race. So let's start with Aslan.
Yeah. Okay, hi everybody. I'm Aslan. I basically created this team quite some time ago. I think like 2015, was it, Ian? Was it 2015?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Yeah, actually our group name came about because we were running the Great Relay Race, and there was four of us. So that was the name that stuck, and it somehow grew. So for me, I've been running trails, I think whew, I think about 7 years, maybe. About 7 years, and my most memorable race is probably UTMB CCC, I think.
Cool. Ian.
Yeah, so for me, I've been my name is Ian Lai, of course, and I've been running trails since 2013, so almost 7 years now. And for me, my most memorable race I would have to say, was the Ultra Trail du Mont Blanc, or UTMB. Just something very special about running 100 miles across 3 different countries.
Jong Hao.
Okay, hi, my name is Jong, and I've been running, if you were talking about seriously, probably the past 3 years, where I started to travel and see the world. So running for 3 years, I think the most memorable bit has to be UTMB OCC last year, where when you cross the finish line in Chamonix, it's quite an experience for sure. Yeah.
Wei Chong.
Everyone, my name is Wei Chong. I've been running on trails since the year 2013. My most memorable race so far was the Labrador Ultra Trail because it was super hard. And also because of the spectacular scenery, I think especially the famed Dolomites, which was really an incredible sight to behold.
Cool. Yeah, and I'm Pavita Singh. I've actually, if I were to think back, I've been running trails since like our cross-country days, but seriously, from a ultra running perspective, 2011. And I think I'll go with Wei Chong in terms of most memorable race. It would probably be Lavredo because it was just so intense. Like I've never ran such an intense race in my entire life. Yeah, and I did it twice as well. I don't know why I did that, but anyway. So that's us. And we'd really like to hear from all of y'all over the next 45 minutes or so. And what we want you to do right now, we want to hear from you. We want you to think about why you started running. If you're on your computer, you can scan this QR code, or you can go to this website called menti.com and use the code. I'm going to leave this QR code online for a bit. I'm going to scan on it as well. I think if you've got a Samsung phone, it's pretty easy. I'm going to scan on it right now. Think about why you started running. What made you actually start running? I'm going to swap screens now. So let's have a look. We've got a few answers coming in. Uh, so let's see. An injury that stopped me from running. To see where my limits are. To run and see the world. To take stress away from life. Lose weight, keep in shape. I saw Carl Lewis in the Olympics as a kid.
I can identify with that one.
Yeah. My parents wanted me to be as my little brother. Yeah. Spending too much running. Look at how the tables have turned. Yeah. Let's see one. Beer. Oh yeah. No. I can agree with that.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
I met a friend. His name is Gary Gellin. He's quite a legendary runner in the US. And I needed to impress my ultramarathon husband.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think sometimes I run just to like try and wear the same pair of pants, you know. So we have a few more people, so that I could run with Puff and drink beer a lot. Yeah, I think I have a feeling. I think I know who that is.
I know who that is. Yeah.
Yeah. I love to challenge myself and push my limits. That's cool. I mean, this is really nice to hear, because it's about seeing the world. It's about having fun, having beer. It's about meeting friends. It's about aspiration. It's about removing stress. And these are really stressful times. And we need to try and figure out how to sort of remove that stress. So let's go back to where we were. Let me find that. Hold on. Give me a second. Here. So maybe, why don't we start with Ian? Why did you start running?
Yeah, so I guess I started running when I came back from the States after finishing my university studies. I was looking for some way to keep fit. I used to play a lot of team sports like football, basketball, that sort of thing, but it's really tough to, once you start working, to get everyone together to play these sports, right? And funnily enough, it was actually Wei Chong who started me thinking about the idea of doing a marathon, because he had done one and I couldn't be outdone, this competitive thing that we have going sometimes. And I followed, and we trained together for one, and it was a really cool experience. And then I kept on from there.
Wei Chong, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I started running during the national service. I think the main motivation at the start was really to stay trim and yet be able to eat as much as I could. But then I think as I started venturing into trail running recently, it was really about being able to explore beautiful places and mountains on foot, which is really quite different from traveling, let's say, on a tour bus. And I think as runners, we are really blessed to have opportunities to see incredible places around the world. So that's how my running journey evolved.
And both of y'all, Ian and Wei Chong, y'all ran the Marathon des Sables.
Yeah.
Correct? While training in Singapore, where
2014.
there's the only sand is fake sand.
Oh, actually, it's perfect weather. It was we were running this up and down this 1 kilometer stretch on East Coast Park. I think you're probably familiar with that. It's a stretch of sand, and we're just going back up and down for 5-6 hours at a time. And it was actually easier to run in the actual Sahara than that stretch, because Singapore is just so much more humid, and just makes it so much more uncomfortable than the dry heat you get in the Sahara Desert. So it's pretty funny, ironic.
Nice. That's interesting. And speaking of Marathon des Sables, maybe Jong, you want to go next, because you've done the mini MBS as well.
Yeah, the half MBS.
The half. Yeah. So why did you start running?
Okay, so for me, I came from a background of contact sports, so floorball to be a bit more specific. And when you play contact sports when you're young, you don't actually know the risk, but when you do get injured, it's usually quite bad. So I've seen 2 or 3 people tear their ACLs in the middle of the court, and it happened once and twice and thrice, and then it got to a point where myself got my ankle injured. So the response just now, where we talk about not being able to run previously, was for me because I wanted to be able to run a few steps before rolling my ankle once again. So it got to a point where I couldn't run properly. And that's when you realize that you want to get back into running, right? Because it's a basic functional movement that you need to get by on a day-to-day basis for daily life. And then slowly as I venture into ultra trail, I think the key thing that draws me is quite similar to Wei Chong, because as a geography student, it feels nice to be able to see the world and to get connected with nature in a more natural and closer and more intimate way.
Oh, nice. Aslan, how about you? Why did you start running?
Well, I guess you could say it's more of a vehicle of self-esteem for me, because I struggled with depression a lot as a young child, because I get bullied when I was much smaller and skinnier than this. So growing up, going to NS, that wasn't like the best time. So somehow during NS, I picked running because, as Wei Chong said, to keep fit, because I feel PPT, and then that kind of morphed into its own little thing. But by 2011, I got bored of running, so I meeting Killian, and the rest is history. I got into the whole idea of traveling and stuff. But the thing is, I'm a very private person. I'm a very quiet person. I don't like to talk to anyone in real life. But somehow it's kind of flipped that trail running has made me a bit more social than I'm used to many years ago. So now I'm a bit more social than I am back in the day. Like last time, I don't want to talk to anybody, but now I'm a bit better at talking to people, but not. I'm still fairly guarded. But if I open up to you, I think it'll be quite easy. So I guess that's how running has morphed for me.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, hearing all these stories, right? Like hearing what people have shared, like, it's about really becoming a better person, uh, staying positive, overcoming odds, right? Like I fractured my arm last year and my whole year was like completely gone. It was tough. In fact, this COVID-19 situation reminds me of the time I was stuck at home last year. And I think the beauty about the running community is that we help to motivate each other all the time through whatever situation. I've made friends just like that on the trail, like halfway through a race when I'm like falling asleep on the trail. And that's the beauty about the race. But now, like, there's no racing. Things are slightly different. We have a slightly different dynamic, which leads me to the next point. It's really balancing work from home. So for all those listening in who are from Malaysia or Hong Kong, yeah, Singapore started sort of a partial lockdown today. So parents were at home with their kids doing home-based learning. I heard some horror stories of complete meltdowns happening, parents not being able to work at all, and this is going to happen for a month. How are we going to actually balance sort of the work from home and running nutrition? I mean, if you want to compare the two, it's like this is a reality that might actually happen. Uh, Pre-race, you feel like Thor. The end of like this situation, maybe not so much. So, uh, yeah, I don't know. Maybe John, you want to share a little bit about maybe some nutrition tips? Like, what can people do?
Okay, so I guess for me, one of the things that I did feel we started sort of getting into the routine of spending more time at home yesterday, and my family started cooking a bit more. So I think the fact that we start cooking, starting to eat a little bit better, starting to treat yourself a little bit better is a way of investing in yourself, to be honest. On my end, I think there are a few things that I've started to experiment with since the start of the year. And I don't think this can necessarily apply or work for everyone, but there are things that you can do just to really invest in yourself in small little ways. So one thing I've started experimenting with at the start of the year was actually BCAAs, which is because I used to use how should I put it, recovery shakes previously, but I never really got into the habit or routine of taking something thick enough to drink in right after every single run. But now that I'm starting to pay a little bit more attention to how I'm recovering after each run, because you don't want to compromise your your body's immunity, I start to pay a little bit more attention to what I put into the system. Yeah.
And probably, and I think a lot of runners might. Steve Carr, am I allowed to argue with the BCAAs? Yeah. Yeah. What are your thoughts about BCAAs?
I don't know if you hear me. I think the problem is BCAAs have appeared out of nowhere in the last probably 2 years. And there's quite a lot of evidence to show that depending on your body type and your system, they make zero difference. Because as long as you have a balanced diet, you don't need to take all these supplements. And there's enough evidence starting to come out about BCAAs and about supplements that people are going out and buying all this stuff when in fact all they need is sugar and
Food,
water.
right? Yeah, I guess paying attention to the diet then also makes a lot of sense.
The last 2 years looking at my diet, going through it, through like looking at actually kind of looking at my blood, kind of going right
blood
down,
work.
seeing okay, what what will impact my body versus what won't. And because there's like like Overstims, and you've got all these big brands now who are pushing BCAAs because they're cheap to produce.
Yes, it's where they're synthesized from. Yeah. Maybe Aslan wants to say something about, I mean, some of the habits that we might get into when we are spending a lot of time at home, snacking and whatnot.
Well, I'm the expert at staying at home because that's what I do every weekend anyway, so it's not a big deal. I think for me the change has been quite minimal because my mom cooks the food at home, so everything's kind of simple. So, but the issue is, well, starving off chips is pretty hard, but that happens. So we'll just run it off a bit more, I guess. Yeah, I think diet-wise, I don't have too much an issue because I don't eat that much, fast food and all that stuff because I cook. My mom cooks quite pretty healthy food, so to me that's not an issue so much. I think snacking probably is, but I guess you could get away with it if you run a bit more. Which leads us to our next question. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking about nutrition, I think I wanted to go back to Steve again. Like maybe because like you run races as well, and like would you have any tips? Like you're in Hong Kong at the moment. You've been at home. I mean, it's so convenient to try and order Grab food or like McDonald's and stuff because it's sitting at your desk, right? Like, what would you tell a runner? Like, what advice would you give?
We've kind of been, so I've been working from home since the 3rd of February, which is starting to get a bit boring now. And like fortunately, we're still allowed to go out and run and get outside. But the whole thing with food is luckily over the last couple of weeks, restaurants have started stopping. Bars have started closing down and things like this. And you just end up going, like it was a couple of weeks ago, I was craving for a burger and I knew full well that I wasn't going to be able to get to the restaurant that I'd normally do. So I went to the supermarket, bought what I needed to make. But it ended up being a much smaller portion, a much better portion of food than if I went and spent however much in a restaurant. So you just end up kind of all that food that you crave, you kind of go, well, if I can't go and get it where I want to get it, why don't I just make it? So I ended up I wanted barbecued ribs. So I went out and bought a barbecue and then made the ribs. Just stupid stuff like that. Because it's just going to be so much better for you in the long run.
Yeah, I can agree with
that. You go to a
that.
restaurant, you buy the food, but then you're talking, Pav will agree with me on this, you go and buy your burger and whatever, and then 5.5 pints later, you've drank your calories for the week.
Right.
And so I just think as runners, there's a lot of us that go on about, our diets and about all our supplements and nutrition for races. That's 10%. And, it's the same at the events that we put on. We always, like most of the events that we put on, we get kind of very serious runners. And I know when I meet runners at the start if they're going to finish. Because I know you could just tell by what they're eating at the start line. You can tell by, I get loads of emails from people, especially around Nine Dragons. What should my diet be before the race? Well, your diet before the race should be the same diet that you've had for the year up to the race. You can't change your diet in a week. It's good, and my background is, I was a national swimmer up to when I was 16, and every time we went training, it was, what have you eaten this week? Because it's got to be good. It's got to be good all the time. And you can have bad days, but there shouldn't be cheat days. Because once you have one cheat day, my personal opinion is you're going to have two, and then you're going to have three, and then in about 3 weeks later, you're going to go, why am I 5 kilos heavier?
It's a slippery slope. Yeah, it's a slippery slope. I can attest to that because that's exactly what happened to me last year when I fractured my elbow. I couldn't do anything and I couldn't move. I got lazy to head out. I'll admit that. So I started just ordering food, and from a bowl of noodles, it became a bowl of noodles with like chicken wings, and when I went for my first run, it just felt horrible.
Yeah.
And it's a similar situation now. So what I've started doing and what's helped for me is, um, this would last me till after lunch, a bowl of fruit with yogurt, more than enough with a bunch of, chia seeds or whatever. Ian, do you have any tips? Because you've been in lockdown kind of in Switzerland, right?
Yeah, we're not exactly in a full lockdown. We're what they call a state of emergency. So we can still head out to the supermarkets to do our essential shopping or even go for a little bit of exercise. Not as bad as in France or Spain or Italy. In terms of what we're talking about in terms of nutrition, I've actually noticed a drastic change in the way I eat, and not so much was being kind of forced upon you because while you're going to the office, it's always easy to head to the nearby restaurant or the cafeteria downstairs and pick something up. And now because you're at home, you have access to quality ingredients you can pick for yourself at the supermarket. So you have a lot more control of what you're putting into your body. And I've been able to, I think, eat a lot healthier since that's been one of the good things that's come out of this whole situation, I guess, personally at least.
Yeah. Wei Chong, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I'm lucky in a sense that I have my wife is cooking at home, and I try to keep to 5 small meals a day, just to make sure that I don't overeat. And basically, I think it's very much similar to what the others are doing as well. Try to keep the snacks and the minimal amount, and try to eat healthily as much as I can. I'm not particular about food, but I just want to make sure that I don't pile on the weight. Sorry, if I overeat.
Yeah, because one thing I've realized also is, well, this is from personal experience because I'll wake up, I'll have a 1 hour commute, I'll be walking a lot more throughout the day. Um, but now for all those who are working from home, if you count the number of steps that you're probably taking per day, it's much, much lower.
Yeah.
It's much easier to probably end up drinking less water per day. And your metabolism rate might just drop. That is a possibility. So maybe this would be a good segue to our next section, which I'm going to share. I just want to share this again because this is a future I hope we don't run into. It's shifting your training focus. Now, we're all trying to find our new ways of thinking, new ways of sort of motivating ourselves. We are looking at nutrition and how to balance out, working from home, kids, all that sort of stuff. Now, if let's say you can't run as much, what do? Right? You can't get your mileage, you can't get your vert, especially in Singapore. We've got one hill, and Bukit Timah Hill has been really, really crowded, and I wouldn't recommend anyone going there when it's crowded because it's unsafe. So what do? There are a few possible things, and we'll share a little bit, and I would really like to hear what other people are doing. So if you've got any thoughts or questions, just put in the chat and we can talk about that. So there are a few things, you've got strength training, there's yoga. I personally like yin yoga, and there are different types of stretches. And there's one specific stretch that's called a couch stretch. Is that right, Joe?
Yes, the couch stretch. I'll post the link inside the chat section, so maybe everyone can take a quick look at that. So, I mean, it's funny because I used to do this quite on a regular basis when I used to have some issues with the hip, and it's all connected down the posterior chain. One thing that I found that it helps because I used to spend a lot of time sitting down, and I think at this point of time in this period, we're sitting down so much that we don't realize how bad it is for our body. Because once you're sitting down, the glutes are not firing, everything in the lower back and the upper back sort of tightens up. There's so much tension that accumulates in the upper parts of the body. And I find this stretch really helpful. And just by actually getting back into the routine, doing this just yesterday, I actually do feel quite a nice relief. Uh, just really getting back into things, and it's one of those things I want to keep in repetition, doing it on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yeah, speaking about sitting down, I think I was telling a couple of people the other day, like my entire work day felt like sitting um, on an 8-hour flight nonstop, and that's not physically healthy. And I'm sure a lot of people might end up doing that subconsciously. So what I would recommend is take breaks as much as possible, and step out whenever you can, because that would really, really help. Wei Chong, do you have any advice on things you could do?
For me, it's because even before the current situation, I've been working from home, I think for 1 or 2 days a week already. And typically I'll use those, I'll take mini breaks, like what you say. And sometimes I'll just head out to my balcony and just do some strength training sessions or even do some push-ups, just to make sure that, I'm not sitting there for hours on end looking at a computer and working. So, and the good thing about my job as well is that I have some flexibility as well. So because I work for multinational, that a company that's based in London, so sometimes I have to take night calls. So during the midday, I could have the opportunity to go out and go for runs sometimes, like for 2 p.m. to 2:30, I go out for a 30-minute run or something like that. So there's a variety to the routine, and it ensures that I don't sit for hours on end.
Cool. Yeah, I think I've started doing that as well. Uh, I tried running around my balcony today. That's about 4 meters long. I realized it was a really bad idea because I got dizzy in like 5 minutes. So don't do that. But what I've started doing is steps and just running around my home. Ian, how about you? What have you been up to, like training wise?
Yeah, so similar to Wei Chong, I used to run most of my training, bulk of my training, I would say, when before all of this went down, was to run at lunch hour. Now that I don't have that lunch hour to myself, I try to structure my day where I try to get in a run every 2 days, just to minimize the amount of time I'm spending outside anyway, and be responsible a little bit. But other than that, I've also started looking at some of the things that I've neglected before this whole situation happened. And as runners, we all like, trail runners especially, we like to be outside, right? We don't like to spend time indoors working on things like weightlifting, or even stretching and yoga and those sorts of things. And I think it's a good opportunity for us, instead of looking at this as a catastrophe, looking at it as an opportunity, more of an opportunity to kind of reassess how we can get better as athletes, more all-rounded. And so I've started doing things like a pull-ups, just kind of working on the upper body strength I've neglected for the past couple of years. That kind of makes you puts you in a better position to take advantage of your fitness when all this ends and you can race again.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point because, uh, without consistency in any shape or form, our fitness level is going to drop. So it's probably best to work on our weakest parts at this point. So if you've got a niggle, if you feel, yeah, my left, and I can speak for myself, my left hip's always a bit like not so stable. I'm building on that stability a bit more, building on that focus, building on the core strength. I started doing yoga a lot more, because yoga is the one that's actually helped me recover from injuries a huge amount. So yeah, I think trying to find new things to focus on really, really helps. I've got like a 1 km park connector behind, and that's where I run. I mean, that's what we have to make use of, I guess. Yeah, and there are like Francis is saying he started doing chin-ups. Yeah, but now fitness corners are cordoned off as today, so
Yeah,
maybe
so I actually
push-ups
have a
instead.
suggestion here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
push-ups are great. And then actually it's a good complement having the pull-ups and the push-ups to kind of work the entire upper body. And one of the things I've done, I don't have access to a chin-up bar near my place either. What I've done is just get one of those bars that you can kind of put up on your door. It's really easy to put up, takes 5-10 minutes, and you're good to go. Highly recommend it.
Cool. Aslan, do you have any tips? Like, are you doing anything differently from before?
Well, like you mentioned, sorry, uh, you can't really go to the trails. It's quite crowded, right? So the best I have is my, around the block. I'm quite lucky. I actually live near NTU, National Nanyang Technological University, which is around 2 to 3 kilometers away. So that stretch of road is actually quite quiet. Well, last night it wasn't quite. Actually, there's more people last night, but that area is quite conducive to just running by yourself. And there are some slopes and stairs around there that I can make use of. So for now, I'm just running around the area and just doing stairs. And I've got like my yoga mat behind me here, there, and
Nice.
I have a balance board as well, so I use that when I'm not really like I'm just to take a break from work, I guess.
Nice, nice. Thanks, guys. Yeah, so like a few things, right? I mean, some things we can think about during these times. It's finding small, achievable, incremental goals. Try a park run, personal best, for example. Build up your speed. Try and do your fastest 400 meters, for example. Maybe do the most number of crunches you can. Small, achievable, and things that will keep you motivated. Create a training game. Like I've got a 1 km loop around my house, which isn't very exciting. There are other people who have 18-meter balconies. You know, try and play a game. Allocate time for training. It's yours. It's precious. It's your. If we think about what some of us said at the start, it's to get away from stress. It's to motivate ourselves. That's your time, and never let anyone take that away from you. And reflect on why we run. There's always a reason why we run, right? Let's see. Do we have any questions so far? Yeah, so Steve has sent a couple of things on building a strong core, how to win like Mo Farah, which is great. Um, we've had a really, really good conversation so far. And now I'd like to push it back to everyone. If you could go back to your Mentimeter, what I would like is for us to think about what would keep you motivated in the next few weeks or months. And if you don't have the link at the moment, I'm going to share that again. For those who joined a bit later, that's fine. Uh, for those who joined later, this is a QR code, or go to menti.com. Use this
Yeah, I posted the
code.
link there. Mm-hmm.
Oh, awesome. Thanks, man. Or just scan it. Yeah. Uh, that's not the question. Why do you start running? It's what will keep you motivated in the next few weeks or months, depending on the situation.
So while we wait for the Mentimeter to fill up, I think some of us are a bit concerned about detraining, right? Is anyone concerned about detraining?
I am.
Because this morning there was a pretty interesting article about detraining, and I thought, the fact that we are doing something consistently, as per our conversation on our last catch up, the fact that we could do maybe not 3 hours in one block in one long run, but the fact that we do maybe 30 minutes on a daily basis, making a consistent effort to work at things, it's not just going to make us detrain as long as we put in just a decent consistency in terms of number of hours and the effort that we put in. So I think.
Are you trying to say like maybe like a single 3 hour run probably is not as good as 10, 30 minutes run?
Yeah, exactly. Because at this point of time, after a long, hard training session, you're going to beat your body up quite a bit, right? But for us right now, because we obviously want to minimize our exposure to large crowds, crowded areas, or, you know, if you're going out to the trails, it's going to be 1 hour there traveling, and then another 3 hours training up and down the same slope, and then another hour back. So why not just keep and pack or restructure that training in a way that suits your life a little bit more, right? Because I think this is the time for us to play around and and see what works out for us better.
Actually,
Can I
just
add
to add,
something?
Sure.
I think we are lucky that we are not on a full lockdown in Singapore. We can still head out to run.
Exactly.
If you look at the trails in Bukit Timah, they are crowded in the mornings and afternoon. But I find that running in the evening at about 4 to 5 p.m. From MacRitchie, that stretch to Bukit Timah is actually quite quiet. So if now it's going to get really crowded once this gets out. But I think there are still opportunities to explore different places, different trails. It's not only about Bukit Timah. There's Mount Faber as well. You can go to Fort Canning and, you know, do birds there as well. So there are other opportunities, I think, in Singapore that we can explore.
Yep. While being socially responsible, of course, we need to, as trail runners, I think that's the at least we can do, like really be socially responsible.
Can I add something?
Yeah, Aslan. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I think Wei Chong's and Zhong's points, suddenly I just remembered something that occurred to me that, remember Zhong's point about detraining and how we can facilitate using different kind of training. I just related to a point about myself that if you all remember, fasting month is the only time in the year that I don't go trail running, right? It is the only time that I never spend at Bukit Timah or elsewhere. In fact, my training during fasting month is evening time only, either around my house, Kent or stairs, and the whole day I'm not eating. So I find that that's kind of a good segue that, you know, and the thing is, right, I remember for the last 2 years, I PB'd my marathon twice, even though I wasn't training as much or as hard. My training was in fact half, my volume is actually half, and my time is actually half. So I think it can be done. As Wei Chong said, we can still run, which is pretty good actually. It's just that we need to know where to safely run and how to be responsible as runners. Because if everybody comes out at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock to run, it's gonna beat the point in the first place. So we need to kind of like see, okay, if someone's running, maybe we'll just go somewhere else or something like that. But the fact that we can still run is pretty good in that sense. And I don't think you'll detrain too much even if you don't go trail running, because there are other ways to do it. You can do tempo work, you can do stairs, you can do strength training. Even your easy run 1 hour is still good enough. You know, I think Coach Andy has done a great job at putting me sharp, even though I was fasting month. Because for me, fasting month, I don't eat the whole day, you know, and I still have to run and train after work. So I think people shouldn't be too worried about training. I think just be a socially responsible runner, I guess. That's where Chong put it.
Cool.
And I just wanted to say something really quickly on motivation. So I saw some of the comments in the Mentimeter talking about some of the motivations that people have to keep them going through this year. Now, we don't know how all this is going to play out, and if there are really no races for the rest of the year, then, you know, I would really suggest that people start to think big and start to think outside the box and explore other race type efforts that you can put your heart and soul into as you train this year. And what I'm talking about is non-race related projects. This is an opportunity to get creative, you know, think about potential FKT attempts. They don't have to be the epic FKTs that we all hear about, you know, the rim to rim to rim or anything like that, but something in your neighborhood, even something epic like someone mentioned that they wanted to run around the neighborhood. Something like what Ricky Gates from Salomon did a while ago called Run Every Single Street. So really get to know your neighborhood and get to know the people and the shops around you, just to kind of really get connected to your neighborhood. And things that you could do also like time trials, you know, 100K time trial on the road, 24-hour distance challenges. You know, the sky's the limit. It's really your imagination. So don't be too depressed about the fact that we may not have any races this year, but instead think about what really excites you outside of races. See that as an opportunity.
That's a good point, because someone also said in Mentimeter that this year it's a training year. I mean, look forward positively. If I continue to train, I'll be at my best form when the time comes. And I think that can be like that. That's the best motivation possible. And the feeling of running, right? Just remembering the feeling of running, exploring your hood, just focusing on minor efforts and weaknesses, things that you never had the chance to work on. and being race ready. So just keep things ticking. Some really, really good comments. Um, well, it's been a pretty awesome discussion so far. Really been enjoying it, and it's almost 45 minutes. Yeah, and now I'd like to open the floor for questions. If you've got questions, you could type that in the chat or just unmute yourself and ask away. So we'll spend a couple of minutes. I'm going to mute myself now. I've been talking a lot. Yeah, any questions, just type them in chat or just ask.
So since nobody's talking right now, I just want to make a brief mention to the fact that we have quite a bunch of local running businesses out there that could be suffering in the case of lack of human traffic to their physical store. So some of them have been quite nice, quite generous, running discounts and all. And I think some of my friends here who are from affiliated with Red Dot Running Company will attest to the fact that there's quite a few discounts running at the moment, right? Am I right, guys? Yeah. So we have another brand which is quite new and upcoming in Singapore, Pure Nutrition. I'll just plug in a free discount code that will take 15% off your cart inside the chat. And this will be valid for the whole month of April.
Thanks, John. And look, I think the purpose of this is really to sort of bring runners together and help local businesses. So, I mean, and races as well, because look, races have been canceled. So there's lots of stuff happening. So we really want to keep the motivation high, keep people race ready, and keep people just running. Francis is asking now, has anyone tried running with those higher altitude simulation masks? And is it worth the investment? I can answer. Do you want to answer that first, John?
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I've been thinking about looking into that maybe about 3-4 years ago, and then I dug up the literature on that. To be honest, it's a really controversial thing because it doesn't really simulate high altitude, but it makes you feel very labored in terms of your breathing, because what happens is that it forces your lungs, or rather your diaphragm muscle, to work extra hard. And I'm not really sure if that's actually a good thing. It might be a good thing if it's not interfering with the intensity of your running, but the thing is that if you aren't getting enough oxygen and clearing the carbon dioxide from your system, then you aren't running at the kind of speed for the given heart rate or pace. You're actually doing yourself a disservice. You see where I'm coming from? So let's just say I'm going to run at a fixed heart rate and it's going to give me a certain output. And all of a sudden I'm going to slap on the mask. My output is going to be reduced. Physiologically, it's not a good thing because you're not getting that sort of adaptation. When you want to get some sort of physiological adaptation, you got to give yourself time at a sustained effort. But once you're not achieving that, when you slap on the mask, your breathing is going to be affected. Everything in the body is going to be affected. You're not doing a big service to yourself. In fact, you could be doing worse.
Yeah, Ian, you've used it, right?
Yeah, I've used one. I used it 5-6 years ago when I thought it was a cool thing. It looked really cool, right? You look like Bane from Batman. But no, other than attracting funny stats, I really didn't see any real positive impact on the running. I think to build on what Jong has said, you absolutely will see a compromise on how much faster you can go, because it's a balance. So if you're taking away oxygen, my legs are not going to move as fast. So you lose out on things like your leg turnover, your speed, and those are things that are actually more detrimental, in my mind, at least, to your overall progress.
Yeah, from my understanding, it's more about, it's actually restricting your breathing rather than lowering the oxygen amount.
Yep, correct.
Because the only, from what I've read, and I've looked into it for various different reasons, is that the only way you can actually adapt your ability to breathe at high altitude is either go to high altitude or spend a couple of $1,000 on a tent. A $50 mask just makes you look, some say cool, others don't.
Just to add on a bit, I actually studied this in school. Okay, my background is actually in sports science, so I actually did study this in school. So one of my I did my homework on it, and so my tutor said, well, look, even the mask, as everybody said, doesn't work because if you go to altitude, the whole reason to have an altitude training is to basically get your EPO or your erythropoietin, which is the cells in your red blood cell to absorb, to create more EPO and absorb more oxygen. Now the issue is that the mask is not going to work. That's one. Also, there's various studies to say that altitude tents or altitude chambers may or may not work. So they've done a lot of blind tests with different athletes, different people. So you take it for what it's worth, I guess. I mean, if you have a lot of money to spend on an altitude tent, go ahead. I mean, that'd be fantastic. But I think most of us don't have that luxury right now to get one of those tents. So I guess,
Yeah, good point.
I just want to wrap up maybe this thing on
Yes.
altitude mask and breathing generally, just by referring to maybe a book called The Oxygen Advantage. I think something that could pay off much more is to pay attention to breathing more on like a daily basis rather than trying to restrict your breathing in your training and in your exercises, because as long as you're not hitting the kind of zones or functioning with the right amount of oxygen that the body needs, or likewise clearing the carbon dioxide from the system, training wise, it's going to take a hit rather than a benefit. I wouldn't say you would achieve a good adaptation. So I'm just going to pump the link right inside the group chat.
Thanks. Lots of good links today. Okay. Wow, that was really good. So yeah, this kind of brings us to the end of today. It's been, yeah, lots of sharing, lots of really good conversations on different topics. And yeah, I think we all want to try and stay motivated. We're going to have another round of sort of webinars coming soon. If you feel that, you know, you have an idea, you want to contribute, you want to be a speaker, or whatever, right? Just drop an email here, trailtalksasia at gmail.com. Happy to chat further. But what's coming next on Saturday is something a little bit more exciting. So we've got a Nine Dragons takeover. This is Nine Dragons, both Malaysia and Hong Kong. I mean, we've heard from you guys that you want to be race ready for 2021. And we've got one in Hong Kong, one in Malaysia, Nine Dragons, you know, 50K, 50 miler, or both. You know, choose your poison. So we're going to hear from Steve Carr, who was sharing just now, and Eugene, who was in our first webinar. And yeah, we're going to find out a little bit more about what their plans are, how they're going to make us heard a lot more in 2021. And maybe, yeah, talk a bit about beer as well, because it's happy hour. So have a beer in hand, have a drink in hand. If you don't drink beer or whatever, choose your poison. Water.
Beers you can get.
Yeah, water is good. Anything's fine. Yeah, even Ribena is good. But yeah, thank you, everyone. The Live Low, Race High group, just say a wave. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for coming.
I want to say thanks, Pa,
Thanks
for
for
organizing this.
tuning in.
It's a great initiative and keeping us all connected. It's quite incredible that we're all in different parts of the world right now. We're able to actually have a conversation together.
Yeah.
So that's quite cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll be posting this recording as well for those who couldn't make it or those who joined late. So you didn't miss a single thing. So yeah, thank you everyone, and see you all on Saturday, 5 p.m.